It's been estimated that over 200 million children in low and middle income countries are not achieving their developmental potential.
80% of the human brain structure architecture is determined by the time a child is 3 years of age.
This is a time where massive development of human happens. It is irreplaceable.
Early childhood development is a multidimensional concept, which means different things for different people. From Thrive's perspective, we want to look at it holistically, ages from conception to age 8. We focus on health, nutrition, early learning, responsive caregiving, and child safety and security as drivers in the child development process. In terms of outcomes, we look at things like health, nutrition, cognition, motor skills, and socio-emotional development.
And it's very important to get it right because it can have positive or negative ripple effect on that child in adulthood.
A lot of research, it has been shown that having stimulating home environment would help children who were living in poverty develop better.
If you can work with parents and do other things to provide the nutrition services and health services that children need, you're able to change the course of a child's life.
So what we have is evidence on particular models that seem to be very effective. We know that early childhood interventions can be very effective and have persistent, large effects on a multitude of outcomes. What we don't know is how to adapt these models to be able to implement them at scale within the tough constraints of the poorer countries.
Scale up by itself is a science. It must be planned. We must look at the factors that enable it and how do we give it the best possible chance of success.
What works at micro level and how best these practices should be scaled up across the country so that more mothers and more children could benefit.
For every dollar that you spend on early childhood development, there's approximately $8 in terms of return. Not every program gives you that $1 for $8 returns. We don't appear to sort of learn from when pilots are successful, but also we don't learn when pilots are not successful. That's what the Thrive program can do really well and really plug a very crucial gap in that research landscape, and particularly around implementation research on scaling up.
How do we take effective early childhood program models to poorer, more resource-constrained contexts and still maintain the kinds of effects that we have seen and we know these programs have the potential to have?
We have to also make sure and always keep in mind that whatever we do is relevant from a policy perspective. This is where the trade-off will be, and this will be a balance that Thrive will have to strike throughout the program. Some of the questions that the government is interested in are not necessarily easy to be analyzed in a rigorous way from an academic point of view.
Some of it will require designing interventions, implementing those interventions, and then doing, the traditional cycle of doing a baseline study and then some rounds of midline studies and then endline.
We have to influence policy, and policy thrives on evidence. And I believe that's the gap that Thrive will be able to fill. Where there is anecdotal evidence, it's an opportunity to test it and be able to provide policymakers with the information that allows them to confidently make policy choices, and in particular invest the limited resources that the country has, because they know that this is backed by science, this is backed by evidence.
We need countries, we need government, we need policymakers to own the output. So we need to ensure that we work with the government hand in hand so that we ensure that the government understands the process and take this evidence for scaling up.
We talk to the stakeholders, government stakeholders, NGO stakeholders, all those who are working in the sector, but especially government. When we hear them, and then it will help us, help us design the research, and then we can have the conversation together. What will it take for this to translate to policy?
So as part of Thrive, one of the things we want to do is to continue contributing to that evidence base on the child development process. Another part that we want to do is to really start adapting successful projects that have been implemented in other in other contexts, implementing them now in several of the 5 focus countries of Thrive.
Working in Tanzania,
Ghana,
Bangladesh, Kiribati,
Sierra Leone.
To adapt them to the local context and then to evaluate to see how it works.
If we can harmonise the research and if we're able to use the same outcome measures, we're able to see the impact of early child development interventions in multiple countries on the same outcome measure that we know from other studies predict later outcomes, then that is the best evidence that we can provide for policymakers within those countries, as well as all other countries across the world, to say early child development makes sense to invest in.
The multi-country design allows research from one country to inform policy in another. The work that we're doing in one country may help another country not make the same mistakes. So this multi-country design also allows us to ensure that we're not reinventing the wheel.
this Thrive project is trying to break this intergenerational cycle of poverty.
The investments now gives returns in future when they are productive.
let's answer the questions that are relevant. Let's answer the questions not just for gathering knowledge, but let's answer the questions that allow policymakers to make the decisions that will make life better for children from an early stage.
What I'm hoping is that we really answer the question of how to scale early childhood programs in settings where the need is greatest, in lower middle income countries, in rural areas, reaching marginalized children. What I don't want to do is provide more evidence on state-of-the-art, small-scale programs, and again make the point that early childhood programs can work. We know they can work. Really, the aim of this program and success for this program is to provide a solid scientific base to show that they can also work at the scale that they need to be working at in order to tackle childhood disadvantage.
It's like if you're building a house, if the foundation is weak, then it doesn't stand. But if you get the foundation right, then it will stand the test of time.
We have a huge opportunity to invest in the future of the country by investing through children within the early child development framework. And here we are. Let's try it.
To find out more or support this project, get in touch.